All right. Welcome to the Tourist Development Council meeting. We are here. It is 2023 February, and it is a great month to be in Manatee County. We'll start the day with a word of prayer with an invocation and then our pledge. Today I have the honor of leading the invocation. So if you could, go ahead and stand. Lord, we are grateful. We thank you that you have allowed us to live in the greatest county in the greatest state, in the greatest country, in the greatest country in this entire world. And Lord, I pray that each of us, that you would lead us and guide us, that you would help us to do our absolute best that we can do with your help to lead this county in the way forward for each of us. Lord, we thank you for the prosperity that you poured out on each of us. And on this place where we live and where we call home. Pray that you bless this time, that you lead us and guide us. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Elliot, if you could, lead us through the agenda.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, if we can do introductions starting with Jiten Patel.
All right.
Jiten Patel, Holiday Inn, Sarasota Bradenton Airport.
Seymour Beach House, Mar Vista, and Waterline.
Derek Cairns, Cedar Cove Resorts, Anna Maria Island.
Shirley Groover Bryant.
Rahul Patel, Red Roof in Allenton, Florida.
David Wick, I'm on the concerned citizen. I'm talking too much.
Yeah, make sure you hit your buttons.
David Wick, concerned citizen.
Norma Kennedy, an interested citizen.
Elliot Felchoni, Tourism Director, Manatee County Government.
Leanne Keeling, Manatee County Government.
Mr. Chair, Mayor Brown has an excused absence today. He's in Tallahassee. The next agenda item, asking for a motion to approve the minutes to the meeting from November 4th.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to approve the minutes and a second. Do we have any discussion? Do I need to open this up to public comment? Anyone from the public want to speak on that? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. We're off to a good start.
Mr. Chair, I want to make a comment. You and I spent a good hour and a half about 2 weeks ago. We're excited to work with you, and gonna be a fun year. A lot going on. As you can see, the agenda. We'll get a great update on the Florida Railroad Museum group that's here, led by the board members, including Ben Jordan as well. Excited to give the Tourist Development Council a state of tourism through research data. And then we have the board here with the Anna Maria Historical Society. So I'm excited to let you know what grant they're seeking towards the end of the meeting. But first off, Mackenzie Lacko with our sports division in our department. Sports is about 15% of our business. So Mackenzie is our sports commissioner. So come on up, Mackenzie, and she's going to give you a state of sports in our community.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Mackenzie Lacko. I studied at Florida Gulf Coast University. I've worked with CVBs for about 5 years now, and I've also worked in the hotel industry. So it's a pleasure to be here. So some of our Bradenton area sports objectives are to entice out-of-town sports groups to host their events in our destination, as well as encourage tournaments during non-peak season that stimulates the overall hospitality industry. So bringing tournaments during summertime, such as May through January, as well as bringing more diverse tournaments and events to the area. And some of our tactics include to build more business-to-business relationships, such as going to conferences and trade shows that are sports-related, and showcasing our quality and unique sports venues, and including our overall destination characteristics, so such as our beaches and the Old Florida feel, and our arts and cultures. Also, we bring sports sponsorships to close deals. Oh, do I need the clicker? Sorry. My bad. And we had an ultimate frisbee tournament at Premier Sports Campus in November. That's the top picture. And then on these charts, this is a 5-year history. Unfortunately, we don't have the numbers for 2022 yet, but we will share those as soon as we receive them. But in 2021, we did have 147,200 sports-related visitors staying overnight. And then again, we still need 2022, but we did have roughly 63 sponsored sporting events in 2022. But again, I can get the more specific number. And then some reminders, as Elliot shared, our sports segment is about 16% of our tourism business, and sports has generated $256.1 million in economic impact this past fiscal year. Some exciting future opportunities we have coming to the area is the American 10s Rugby Series. So it's the first professional rugby event to be held at Premier Sports Campus, which we're really excited about. It'll have 8 professional teams. They'll be also training at IMG, and it's estimated to have 4,000 fans at each game. That'll be in May. And then in June, we have Premier Super Copa. In October, we'll have the United States Australian Football League National Championship. And then in November, we'll have U.S. Quad Ball Regional Championship, which is also another diverse sporting event. So it's technically the sport of Quidditch, but it is a mixed gender contact sport with a unique mix of elements from rugby, dodgeball, and tag. And then some future venue expansions. At Premier Sports Campus, we'll have the multi-purpose permanent tent structure, which will have about 400 banquet-style seating, some locker and multi-purpose rooms, and permanent restrooms, and more parking spots. And then at the Convention Center, we'll have also an additional multi-purpose room for up to 900 banquet seats. And then the Marriott Palmetto Hotel is to be built and connected to the venue as well. We're hoping to be open winter of 2024. And then with the hotel, we'll have the ability to host more like bigger sports conventions and larger sports tournaments. Oh, sorry, I did a little backwards there. So yes.
Just a couple comments. Thanks, Mackenzie. This is
you.
the first time you've seen Mackenzie. She started off at Premier Sports Campus, did a great job. The clients really, really liked her. She was born and raised on Anna Maria Island. Mm-hmm. She was born in Bradenton, raised on Anna Maria Island. So there's nothing better than getting a native resident working for us. The one thing that caught my eye was the number of sporting events went down, but the number of room nights and economic impact went up, okay? Less is more theory. I think you'd all agree with that. If we can do more big events, fewer times of the year, it helps find balance and continues to maintain and enhance the quality of life for the residents that live here. It also is less wear on our sports venues as well. So we're looking for those bigger signature events around the year that have an impactful economic impact, okay? So Mackenzie will come and pay us a visit once or twice a year. She just got off the road in Panama City, meeting with some other counterparts. And as you all know, it's a really, really important part of our diversity of visitation, because the sports parent who comes here for the first time returns for vacation about 74% of the time. Okay? Thanks so much, Mackenzie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mackenzie. We appreciate it. I took things a little out of order, and I may end up calling for public comment again, just out of sheer habit. But we do these meetings. Elliot did tell me that we do kind of public comment at the beginning. So I sort of opened it up for that, but not very well. So let's go back and get number 2 on our agenda. If there's anyone here that would like to address the Tourist Development Council, this is your opportunity. All right, now that was official. So, seeing none, sir, if you could go ahead and take us to number 4.
Yes, sir. You've all met Mackenzie in the past, and Mackenzie and Colby,
Colby, we should be in
Gason,
Colby
and
now.
Mackenzie.
I threw you off.
Yes,
That was my bad.
that's okay. The one of the neat things about Colby is her and Mackenzie work well together, because when we recruited Colby from Pasco County, she did a lot of sports marketing. So not only does she do domestic leisure marketing, but she also has that sports-minded marketing creativity that's really, really important for us moving forward. So good morning, Colby.
Good
Tell
morning.
us something new.
Well, you know, Mackenzie and I do work so well together. Sometimes we're just synonymous with one another. So well, I'm really excited to bring you this presentation today. I'm going to be going over Q1. So Q1, as a reminder, we run off of the October 1st through September 30th calendar. So this is going to take us from the start of our year through the end of December. So first, we're going to start off looking at our website. We've seen consistent growth, which is fantastic. And this blue is January, orange is December, with gray being November. So you'll see a steady increase in our organic traffic, which means we're doing a great job of maintaining brand presence in our marketplaces with direct traffic as well, meaning that we have a well-established brand in our marketplace. People are also not only seeking us in organic ways, but they're also coming to us directly because they already know our brand and they know what they want from us. With that being said, you'll see that paid social was really high in December, and I expect that to be ramping back up. We had a brief pause as we were getting our marketing going for this new fiscal year, so we should anticipate seeing paid continue to grow. Also, our email marketing is one of our strongest drivers, which is fantastic. We have on average a 25% open rate, and our click-through rate mirrors that, which means we are sending information to people who are seeking information about our brand, so our marketing funnels are really strong. Also, you'll see that our gender breakdown is consistent with who we're marketing to, as well as our age ranges. We can see consistency with our primary age group with Gen X and our boomers, as well as the up-and-coming millennials who, much to my chagrin, are getting older now, as well as Gen Z coming up quickly behind. So we'll be experimenting with new ways to reach those upcoming generations, but all is well. So, leading into marketing, we were into our fall traffic, so really going after our Canadian travelers. This is a breakdown of what our marketing spend was for Q1. You'll see in Q2, our spend is going to be far less than this because we're in high season. And when we're in our peak season, we back off of our marketing. We don't completely shut down because we need to maintain brand awareness in our marketplace. So we still want to make sure people know of us, they're thinking of us, but maybe not really driving them to book with us and pushing them out a little farther for the summertime travel. So you'll see digital will always be the strongest segment of our marketing. Print, probably the smallest, but usually if we do any print buys, there will be a digital component built into that. Out of home, that's really getting our brand awareness through different partnerships, and then bringing it up as native content, which I'll get into right now. So, This is just a further breakdown of some of the seasonal campaigns as well as the long-term annual campaigns we have running. We have a part of our buy with the Pittsburgh Penguins. We have a sweepstakes running right now, so thank you to all of you who have contributed to that. It's probably the best sweepstakes giveaway we've done yet. That's a great opportunity for us to capture leads. Dreamscapes is a Visit Florida co-op, so it's always great for us to get our names synonymous out there with Visit Florida, the marketing agency for the state. So when people think of Florida, they think of the Bradenton area. So we'll be running this campaign. It's been a 3-month campaign. It'll be ending, I think, in March. And that directly targets our Canadian friends to our north, because when they are just buried deep, what better to hit them with than sunshine? Hearst is a native campaign buy that we've really been going after our Connecticut friends to build that marketplace now that we have 2 nonstop flights as well as a 3rd option in New York. So there's a lot of availability now for them to get to us. So we want to make sure that they know that we're here and that we should be their go-to sunshine destination. As well as we've been running through Brand USA, another Canadian-focused buy. That's primarily digital and social. Ongoing Visit Florida, again, their new visitor guide is out. We have participated in that with an editorial campaign. We also have strong continued digital campaigns running, as well as our SEM Facebook remarketing done through Mad Media. And our marketing partnership with the Hartford Athletic is getting ready to kick off, pun intended, this week. So moving on to social media. You'll see that getting into season, we never stop on social media. It's always a great, easy way to engage with our followers, with people who may be curious about our destination, and those also who are loyal to our brand and just want to interact with us on a consistent basis. We did see a little bit of a dip when we handed over our social media management to Aqua, and things are ramping back up. So moving forward, the content that we've seen consistently perform well are our natural resources. And you're going to see that really perform well during this time of year, especially when we're hitting our friends to the north and in the Midwest when they're struggling with those negative temperatures and feet of snow. So they want to see our destination, they want to see that aspirational travel, and they really engaged well with it on our main primary Visit Bradenton Gulf Islands Facebook and Instagram pages. We also hosted Kelly Tower, who is a Connecticut influencer. We actually met her at an event that Kelly Clark had gone to a few months back, and this was a partnership with her and Avelo Airlines. So Avelo brought her down here to our destination, and she brought her family, and it performed outstandingly well for us. She has written a blog post that we've seen a lot of engagement on, and she continues to provide content for us from her family visiting the destination. She has 2 beautiful young children. She's a sheer delight, so we'll be sure to maintain that relationship with her for future opportunities when we're going after that market. And then moving right into PR, we have been so busy on PR. We are getting the word out there, so PR plays into that organic traffic you are seeing coming to the website. We hosted a press trip. It was a pre-event FAM trip, familiarization tour, with the International Food and Wine Travel Writers Association. IFWTWA, we can never get it right. But they were a lovely bunch of travel writers. You can see a picture of the group there. Obviously, they wanted to focus on food and wine, but also some contextual experiences within the destination. So far, and give me 1 second because I really want you to know these stats, they've turned, since they came in September up until last week, we're still getting articles, 12 articles. And that's an overall total unique monthly visitation between their publications of 223 million visitors to the websites. So we've had Travel Awaits, Travel Weekly, as well as some micro publications on their individual blog sites. So again, they came in September, and at this point, we've almost gotten an article a week from them, and they loved our destination. So these are the kind of writers we want when we host these group FAMs, is we want to see that trickle. We'll see those immediate publications, but then we'll also see kind of that overall flood, and it's the gift that keeps on giving. This is just kind of a compilation of those articles that I mentioned. and we'll be happy to send you links if you want to read them. And we just hosted another culinary fam trip, so thank you to Ed and his team because they were instrumental. We took them to Gamble Creeks for a farm tour, which I found personally very enlightening of the sustainable efforts that our destination is doing, and really submerse them in the Cortez history of the fishing community and where our food comes from on a local level. We've already had one article that's live. There's 2 more that are set. Ed, one wants an interview with you, so there's my heads up. I'll be getting that to you shortly. So very talented, very educated culinary travelers. These people knew their food. They were throwing out words that I'm like having to Google on my phone really fast, and I thought I was well informed. So again, we're going for quality journalists who are going to fall in love with our brand and be those continued brand ambassadors as time goes on. So what do we have in the works? What's coming up next for Q2 and the quarters we have following? New website. Madden Media won our RFQ for a new website. It was a very close race. We're really thrilled to be going about this. This is my second time building a website with Madden Media. The last time I did this, we won a Bronze Adrian Award. So the caliber and the level and the talent that they bring to this project is exceptional. At the same time, we already had a PO open with them for a new destination guide. So we kind of have an advantage here of having the same company do our destination guide, do our website. That means a lot of cross storytelling can take place, a lot of storytelling in the destination guide to get people to go to our website. So it'll be a very fluid marketing funnel. And then we have a Grand Rapids PR media event coming up next month in March, where we'll be taking some local partners to educate one of our strongest markets more about why their local residents in Michigan and Grand Rapids should be coming down here. And then we're also the first destination to be an official Leave No Trace partner, not only in the state, but in the U.S. This is huge. So with our Love It Like a Local campaign, we're serious about making this an initiative for our destination, and there's no better stamp of approval and certification than this partnership with Leave No Trace. So we're working on a beautiful video that'll tell the story from a local perspective of how our destination is a sustainable place, how we love our destination and want to make sure we ensure it for future generations to come and love it as we do today. So, in a nutshell, that is our Q1 and what we have coming up for the next quarter.
Colby, quickly, give a little bit more depth on Leave No Trace, what that really means.
Yeah. So Leave No Trace is a nonprofit organization that was started out of the National Park System, and it's exactly what it says. Come and enjoy your time, but make sure you don't leave trash or anything that would disturb the local wildlife. Basically be a responsible tourist. And through that, they've expanded different opportunities, which they've opened through Matador Network, who brought our 2 brands together for this particular opportunity. So it's really exciting. It's a continued stewardship that we can really do a lot with, and they're really, really, really excited. They've not done so much with a beach destination before, so it's kind of a unique opportunity for them to kind of expand their brand as well. Yeah.
Any questions?
Any questions?
I just have a comment.
Go ahead, Mayor.
I really appreciate the Leave No Trace. I think that needs to be brought home even and expanded. So I really do appreciate that.
And we'll be doing a full marketing campaign behind that. That video will be coming out in May. So we'll make sure locals and our visitors are well informed.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, my only one comment is Ann Watine would tell you that Connecticut was our most underserved state in our target mix. So to be able to add Avello to New Haven, Breeze to Hartford, and White Plains comes with a high demographic clientele. So that's why we did some activations, some promotions to really get our brand to resonate. It's a really important state to our hospitality industry. Thanks, Colby. Great job.
Yep.
Has anyone Googled what a person from Connecticut is called?
Colby?
Somebody's got to use their phone. I almost did.
There's actually not a good answer to this because when we had a media event in October, I was like, what do I call you guys? And they're like, well, there's a whole bunch of different options. And honestly, I don't remember one of them. I would highly recommend you Google because it's kind of something of debate in Connecticut if you want something fun to research later.
We're going to call them future visitors.
There we go.
Yes, good.
To the Bradenton area. Wonderful. Thank you, Colby. And now I'll go ahead and lead us into number 5. We've got the Florida Railroad Museum update. Today, we have with us Mr. Ben Jordan. He's a board member of the Florida Railroad Museum. He'll tell you more about himself and what they've been up to way, way east. Just kidding, it's not way east anymore.
Used to be further.
It used to be a lot further. You could get there faster, but it felt farther away. But what is going on in Parrish at the Florida Railroad Museum?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Take it away.
Sorry, thank you. Oops.
It's coming up now, Ben. There you go.
So I got to back it up, so. Okay. I can't tell you how much the TDC grant has meant to us. A lot of you know how tough the last couple of 3 years have been. We run a cash business, and we depend on our passengers for our revenues, obviously. We were put at half capacity on all our trains. People had to wear masks. You know all that. You've been in that business and everything. So it's been very tough. And without the TDC grant, we could not have continued with the building. I'm really excited about the building. I'm going to show it to you. These are the major events that we have. We have trains that run every week, twice a day on Saturday and Sunday. But then we have the major events. And the major events are the ones that really draw a lot of people in. The biggest event we have of the year is the North Pole Express. We just completed that. This is the best year we've ever had from the standpoint of revenues. Part of that is because we put more capacity on, and part of that is because we raised prices, but also ridership is up significantly. We had over 17,000 riders to come and go on the train. So many of them are parents with their kids in pajamas, and they come up because they know the kids are going to go to sleep when you're going back on the train and the train's rocking back and forth. So it's really neat. Another really neat event, and it's hard for me to get as enthusiastic about it as I wish you could be, because I wish you could see it, is the pumpkin patch. For the pumpkin patch, we have 1,000 pumpkins, roughly this side, that are laid out at Willow. If you know where Willow is, our train runs from Parrish to Willow. And when the kids get off the train, they get to go and pick out any pumpkin. So you see 200 kids coming off the train and all these pumpkins out there. And there's like a methodology. Some of the kids go and grab the first one they see. Others go and thump it and try to find one that's the right one to get. So our business is a fun business because we get to deal with so many parents and grandparents and their children. The TDC grant was mainly helped us because we were just dead in the water with a slab and some concrete blocks. Because of the TDC grant, we were able to use most of it went for construction materials and labor. That's a hard thing to find, as you also know. You had people that you went to and said, yeah, we'll be there next week, and next week never came. I'm sure you're laughing, you never had that happen kind of thing. We also had to relocate some rail cars and some rail line for the building. We did some new structure going up. One of the biggest draws that we have is our cabooses. Parents rent the cabooses for a birthday party. So they come and they've got the caboose all of themselves. And on a lot of trains, especially the Christmas trains, we'll have 4 and 5 cabooses that are on the train with parties to go out on them. And then finally, an interesting thing we found an old turntable. I don't know if you know what a turntable was. I was in San Francisco a lot of years ago, and I went to the end of the trolley line. When you get to the end of the line, there's the house where they work on them, and it was a big turntable. And the cars pull up on the turntable, and the turntable turns and lines a car out on another track. Well, we found an old turntable. There's not many of them that left. And we've got the pieces of it put together and hope someday to have a working turntable up there. These are the biggest capital improvements that we did on the building. Our new station is basically 3 buildings. One is the ticket office and display area and waiting room, and it's right at 5,000 feet. The other is what we call the freight room, and it's also about 5,000 feet, and in addition, it has restrooms on it. And then the third one, the last one, is the display area for the cars. And it's basically a cover under a shed with rail tracks coming up and the different cars on display. So we have now, the whole thing is under roof. If I can see my notes. The first area that you see here on the upper left is the display car area. Right now, that area is 140 by 125 feet. So it's 125 feet long, 140 feet wide. We have the land to expand that for an additional 600 feet. So if at some time we have enough equipment we want to show. Now, 125 feet sounds like a lot of room to have displays. But when you think about a passenger car is 85 feet long, you can't line up too many cars underneath there. So basically, if you got 4 track, we've got 4 cars with the exception of, in some cases, we've got smaller cars, like we have an old steam engine, and we also have some of the cars that we got from Feld that are the old circus train cars. So it's got a flat car with the wagon that goes up on it that the animals came and everything. So we'll have that in displays, and the people can just walk around and see them. The middle picture on the top row is the front of the building. The building was designed after a couple of old train stations here in this area. The room on the front, on the top right, is what we call the ticket office and gift shop. And we already know what we're going to do to lay it out. The room on the bottom left is the display area and the waiting room. So this is one room. The top right and the top left is one room. And at one end of the room is the ticket office and gift shop, and the other end of the room is the waiting area and display area. We have so many things that people have donated to us, old signals, old lanterns, old memorabilia from the railroads that we have, and that's what we plan to put in the display area. The bottom middle is the freight, we call it the freight room or the community room. It's basically 5,000 feet. It's 100 by 50 feet, and at the front end of it, in addition to the 5,000 feet, is the restrooms. I heard somebody say that at the sports area you're going to have real restrooms kind of thing. We know what a big thing that is. We're finally going to have real restrooms. This room is seated. The TDC people came out, some of Elliott's people, to help us with layouts for this. There's 2 layouts that they gave us. One layout would give us room to have buffet tables on either side, round tables, 5-foot round tables, and 168 chairs. So we could have like a wedding or a convention, or somebody wants to come out and have a business meeting and then go for a train ride, they could do that and have a nice setting. If you went to a max setting, it would be 312 chairs and 60 round tables. So that's the capacity of that room. And then the picture on the bottom right is restrooms. People said, why do you want pictures of restrooms? Because like you guys, we're very happy to say that we have restrooms finally. We've got a lot to do to finish the project. We've got to finish the display racks and everything in the gift shop area. We've got to install air conditioning. We've got to install drywall. We've got to complete the restrooms again. Landscape, paving the roads and buses. We've had a lot of people that do bus tours that heard what we're doing, have contacted us and say, hey, we want to know when you're going to be ready for us to come in and do a tour. And then completing the rail car display. That's everything I have. If you have any questions, and again, we can't thank you enough for helping us get here.
Thank you, Ben. Go ahead.
Ben, what does it cost to rent the caboose?
You know that off? Yes.
About 500.
About $500.
What's the capacity of that?
15.
15 people, okay. And the train, is it you'll have to excuse me, is it a locomotive, is it steam, what is it?
No, it's a locomotive. It was in the first picture.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yeah. If I knew how to get back to it, I would.
It's diesel, regular diesel.
Diesel?
Yeah,
Okay.
1951.
And the length of the ride on the train?
It's 35 minutes up to the facility, about 35 minutes at the facility, and about 35 back. So an hour and a half, plus or minus.
Interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We also rent, a guy can come and be the engineer on the train. About 2 or 3 years ago, I was out at the museum, and there was a lady there, and she was so excited. They were from England, and her husband had on his bucket list that he wanted to be a train engineer. So she'd somehow found us on the internet and had called over and rented the train, and it was a surprise for him. He didn't know what they were going to do, and she had a hat for him and some bib overalls and everything like that. So we have a lot of people that just want to rent the engine to be able to run it.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Great. Well, I think we have a couple more questions. Before we do that, what was the name of the gentleman that's giving us answers from the
Excuse me,
back?
Pat Masterson is our president
All
of
right.
the Florida Railroad Museum,
So-
and Paul Chapman is our vice president of the
Pat
museum.
Masterson was giving us answers. He was telling us it's 35 minutes there, 35 minutes at Willow, and 35 minutes back. So a little bit over an hour and a half total. And that currently to rent the caboose is 15 people and about $500. That's all for the clerk who will be listening to this later, I presume. All right, go ahead, Mr. Childs.
So when you make this trip, how many train cars are on that 35-mile trip or 35-minute trip?
But depends on what we have for passengers that day.
So you can put as few as
come on
and
up
as
here.
many as?
Excuse me? Put as few, yeah.
Yeah, could you repeat the question, please?
Right. How many cars can you put on the train from the smallest number to the biggest number?
During the summer, we run 3 passenger cars because we don't have a lot of people. Snowbirds have gone, and the loads on the weekend are maybe 100 people per train. The Christmas train has 8 passenger cars, 4 cabooses, and 2 locomotives. It's almost a quarter mile long, and the most people we've had on a Christmas train is 625 passengers.
So,
And during the Christmas event, we do 2 trains a night, well over 1,000 people a night, and they all get to see Santa Claus.
how many passengers per car?
Most of the time, it's between 40 and 60, depending upon the layout of the car.
And do you rent a car
Yes,
for a party?
quite
or a
often,
group
yes,
that wants
quite
it?
often. We've had PTA groups or school groups come down and rent an entire car on a train.
So Eric asked about how much to rent a caboose, how much to rent a whole car?
The car is a little bit over a few $100s. It depends on the car, and I'm not exactly sure. We'd have to look that one up. It's a few hundred.
Car.
Because your tickets are about $15 a person, and you have 40 people in a car, so you want to make that money back.
Got it.
Anything
Thank you.
else?
We might need a hands-on.
Pat, let the record show that you bailed out Mr. Jordan.
He bailed me out a lot more times.
Mr. Chair, just a couple thoughts. First, they've been great stewards of our community as a nonprofit. one of the reasons why we got involved in this, and when they invited me up the first time, total transparency, I thought I had a little leverage. So I said, y'all know it's a kid's dream to be in the engineer's seat. So they let me get out in front and take it down the road. It's quite amazing. But Parrish needs to have a sense of community, a sense of place. And we look at this as a major seed for Parrish and a major amenity for the future conventions that we're going to get coming to Palmetto. So we can send people out to Parrish for more than just the outlet mall. So it's really, really important. I was blown away when Ben invited me out a few weeks ago to see how much progress they've made. Like a lot of small nonprofits in our community, and raise your hand if I'm wrong, but you all are 100% volunteer organization. And with this build out, they're able to diversify their revenues. And when they have a CEO for these buildings, it should give them the ability to hire some help, which is really, really a big step forward. It's our job, I believe, my job, staff's job, to help them find additional revenues now. Now that you can go out there and see it for real, there has to be philanthropists in our region, some private grants available that weren't there when it was just land. So I'm going to do all I can to get word out about where they're at, because I think we all want to see this done very soon. So I'm going to continue to work with Ben and the board to see how we can get this to the finish line, and then we can all enjoy a ribbon cutting at that point.
I agree. Sounds good. Yeah, it's a special place, and my kids have all enjoyed it. And when I have guests from out of town come, I remember my translator and his family came from Haiti once, and that's where we were at Christmas time, was riding on that train. So it was a great time. So wonderful. All right. Any other questions about the train museum? What a unique, spot we're in, where we've got obviously the most beautiful beach, in the world to our west, but we also have opportunity heading to the east as well for growth and taking advantage in a good way of that situation. So looking forward to hearing more from that in the future as we move forward. Number 6, we have the State of Tourism update. That'll be Ann Wittine, if you want to introduce her, Elliot.
Yeah, for some of you who don't know, Ann and I have worked together since, I guess, 2004. And she has the institutional knowledge, one of the top research firms in the state of Florida and beyond. And she has gone over and above her scope of services over and over for our department, for our TDC, and it's always a blessing to have Ann give us a State of Tourism update in these meetings. So good morning, Ann.
Good morning. So we're going to talk about calendar year 2022, and we're going to talk about December, and I'm going to go forward, not backward. It's a left-handed thing. So for December, the county hosted 73,300 overnight commercial lodging visitors. So for some of you who are new to the board, we gathered this information in a number of different ways. We have face-to-face interviewers who are out in the destination talking to overnight commercial lodging visitors for random intercept surveys. We also do primary surveys with accommodations throughout the destination, not just hotels and motels, but also vacation rental management companies and that kind of thing, and condos, to make sure that we have the full scope of mom and pops to flagged larger properties. So we collect that information so that we can work from the hotel side, and then we get length of stay and party size from our intercept interviews in order to calculate these estimates. So that was a 7.5% increase over last year, but a 37% increase over 2019 in terms of number of visitors. Room nights also up a little bit less. We saw a bigger party size this year, which you'll see in a minute. But We had a 14.5% increase in economic impact, and that's really important. Bringing more visitors is always a good thing, but having them leave more money behind is always a goal. So nearly $100 million of total economic impact, including the ripple effects of that direct spending in the destination, which is a 66.2% increase over where we were in 2019. I was saying to Elliot earlier that we're starting to see destinations have a check back to the more normal growth pattern that they would have seen. You know, we've seen phenomenal growth. And so I keep waiting for the check. And we had done an estimate of what December was going to look like, actually fairly far along in our collection process. What we do is at the beginning of every month, we send out the occupancy surveys to lodging properties. And so we start getting for the previous month. So we'll say, you know, now here in February, what did January look like? Because it has to be over before people can tell us what, you know, things really shaped up to be. And in looking at those preliminary surveys, we had done a preliminary estimate of what December looked like. And when we had everything in and all was said and done, it was considerably higher than it had preliminarily looked like it was going to be. So we keep doing estimates and you guys keep surpassing them. So occupancy, 67.2%, up 0.7 over last year, but ADR for the first time ever for a December over $200, up 15.8% on average from 2021, and 31% over where we were in 2019. Importantly, and I kind of keep emphasizing this, although we saw the licensed commercial lodging units, which is according to the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation. So their official licensed transient lodging units stayed about stable to what it was last year. But compared to where we were in 2019, it's 10% up. So when you look at that occupancy number and the fact that occupancy is a little bit higher than it was, the pie has grown by 10%. We're selling that much more, or we have that much more to sell. So in terms of where people are coming from, December was kind of interesting. We actually saw increases in Florida and Southeast over December of 2021, and that's not what we've been seeing. We've been seeing contractions. So that was kind of interesting, but we do see, and as we would expect to see, growth in our European traffic, but we still are, at about half of what we were in 2019. So that's still a piece of our diversity that will come back and grow. So I mentioned this already. So we had party size up. I know that a 10th doesn't look like much, but when you've got a slightly bigger party size in all of those rooms, it winds up being a lot of people. So what this looks like in terms of the calendar year, for the first calendar year ever, we exceeded 1 million overnight commercial lodging visitors staying in the destination, up 8.4%, with a first time ever economic impact of over 1.5 billion. If you look back to 2019, we were just 1 billion. So that's a 50% increase, 36% increase in terms of visitors. And we also have where people are coming from. This is more the pattern we've been seeing, where there's that slight rollback in Florida visitors. But I say this kind of over and over again. As you guys marketed when COVID hit, and you marketed to the local people who were most likely to come at that point, as you made this very logical pivot in your marketing to adjust to what was happening, you gathered a whole new set of people who are continuing to come. So those marketing dollars that you spent then, you can still see it play now. So yes, we had a 16% decrease in Florida visitors compared to last year, but that's still 78% up over 2019. Which is major. We knew that what would happen is as the world opened, they'd go back to cruising and they'd go back to traveling internationally and go back to wherever it was they were visiting, but they're also still coming here, which is very exciting. So 1,000, that number is right. 1,000% increase in European traffic over last year, which makes sense. The borders didn't open until November of 2021, and still that 44% room to grow over 2019. We've also seen huge growth in our Canadian traffic, and are getting back to where we would be there normally. Elliot mentioned that we had told them that Connecticut was the most underserved market. One of the things that we did when COVID hit is we took a massive database of people with an expressed interest in visiting Florida, and in looking at those people's reaction to an interest in visiting the Bradenton area, Hartford, New Haven was the biggest market of interest, which didn't have direct flights. So now it does, and it's very exciting. But we know from that research that the interest is there. So in terms of industry trends, the Sarasota-Bradenton International Airport hosted 3.85 million visitors, nearly 4 million visitors in 2022, where in 2019 we were nearly 2 million visitors. And so Elliot is very fond of saying that, we increased, everybody was increasing. The reality is not everybody increased like we increased. And you can see that in the airport numbers and the growth that the destination is realizing over 2019. If you compare it to TSA data, that's nationwide throughput through security checkpoints, through TSA security checkpoints. So those nationwide counts. January of 2023 was the very first time since February of 2020 that there was an increase over 2019 numbers in nationwide numbers. And Sarasota-Bradenton is up by 65%, something like that, a lot. So speaking of those throughput numbers, so this is the recovery trend that we've seen. This is the average daily passenger throughput in 2019, the average daily passenger throughput in 2020. And this is the 2019 patterns repeated, because it was really hard to look back to 2019 and see whether or not we'd actually gotten there. We had been seeing about a 10% gap. And a lot of that gap wasn't that people weren't willing to fly. A lot of that gap was that airline costs were off the charts, and that airlines didn't have the flights available, cancellations, and all kinds of things were attributing to that gap that we were seeing through summer. And so now you can see that we've actually, but we were mirroring the normal pattern, just we were below it. Now we have met up, and as I said, in January, for the very first time, the number was higher, but it was only 2%. It was 1.9% for January over January of 2019, January 2023. So looking at the people who have responded to our January occupancy survey so far in February, things were extraordinarily positive. The only property that I could find who wasn't saying that things were looking very strong was a very tiny property who said that reservations are slow and they think that it might be economy related. Everybody else was saying very positive things looking into winter, sort of mirroring what we're seeing with airport travel. And I wanted to mention I had one property in the December occupancy who said that their leisure business was slow. But what we're hearing from the properties is that sports business and group business and that the other business that you're going through is helping to fill when there's some of those soft spots. So that's a very quick overview of December and calendar year 2022 and a little bit of outlook for what winter is going to look like. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? Are we a board or are we a council?
Your Tourist Development Council.
Any questions from the council? Councilmen and women?
Another fabulous report.
Thank
You're
you.
spot on. You are spot on.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Yes, sir.
So, I have some properties in Fort Myers and Sarasota and Bradenton, and the trend I'm seeing is, especially in Fort Myers, because the beaches are like not in a good condition, the occupancy is more due to reconstruction. And I do not know how can we take advantage of our beaches being so nice right now and kind of get more tourists from there to here.
Yeah. I can answer that question.
Yeah. And I think you are getting some benefit from that already, but that's not everything that you're seeing.
In short, in a very, very sensitive manner. You know, we have to believe in our brand, our marketing, total transparency. We're not going to go after someone else's business when they're down, and I don't think you meant it that way. Organically, our brand is out there that people who have traditionally gone to that market that has been impacted by a major adversarial occurrence are going to look to other West Coast destinations. And a place like this is a really second great opportunity. So we're seeing a lot of that. Like Ann had mentioned, we expected a lot of the domestic target to go to Europe because they hadn't been there since 2019. So it's we're getting hit two ways. One, we're still seeing domestic pent-up demand. Part of it is because of the impact down in Sanibel, Fort Myers. Number two, we're seeing really strong UK and Central European bookings. Kelly's going to do an April update on that because she'll be able to tell you what's coming in this summer and next fall in the international market. By then, you may start seeing a little bit of normalcy. It's amazing when you have double-digit increases and all that, it kind of glosses over like it's normalcy. We have to continue to be strategic and tactful and continue to think of how can we continue to enhance the economy, but in a less is more manner. That is easier said than done, okay? But we have to target that because at the end of the day, we're all community servants, but we're trying to feed the hospitality industry that feeds the residents, that enhances the quality of life for the people that live here. So, but at the end of the day, Colby and Kelly are managing a really strong brand in the marketplace, but the hospitality industry does a great job marketing as well. So there's where the struggle of the balance is. So that's where we're at. I think, you know, I feel good, you know, because the TDC embraces that as well. And like I said, it's easier said than done. We're going to be getting, I'll give you a water ferry update later, but gosh, we need to, if there's a high priority, and I know the Board of County Commissioners have focused on infrastructure more than ever in my career. So that is awesome. But now with that infrastructure, we got to keep multimodal transportation going, especially going to that island, because if we continue to increase the traffic on that island, then our brand is not true in the marketplace of old Florida kind of brand element. So I gave you a long answer, Raul, but that's where my heart is, and I feel good about it. Thanks, Ann. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ann. Great job. Those numbers towards the end, when it was, I guess maybe I do have one more question. So towards the end with the big, when it had the 2% versus 2019, that's TSA overall in the United States of
Yes.
America, correct?
Yes.
So they've seen a 2% increase over 2019.
In January of 2023, over January of 2019, there was a 1.9% increase in system-wide
Right.
people passing through TSA checkpoints.
Would-
That was the very first positive number since February of 2020.
Which stands in contrast to what we've seen
Yes.
locally. I mean, we are seeing off-the-chart growth
Off the chart.
for us,
Yeah, almost double,
almost double.
almost double.
Great. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And airline travel has gone through some adversarial occurrences, not only airlines, but even the air traffic control out of Jacksonville has really kind of held up flights. So that's pretty good based on a stigma of people maybe starting to get concerned about flying because of that reason. So I think we're weathering that pretty good.
Absolutely, sounds like it. All right. And number 7, Elliot?
This is an annual housekeeping that I always feel like it's really important to have on the agenda. We have new TDC members as well. I always ask the county attorney just to remind all of us, including me, that we're all in the Sunshine Law. I have the pleasure of chatting with you all, meeting with you all one-on-one a lot. And as I've told you all, conversations I have individually with each of you can't be shared with any other TDC members that relate to TDC business. So I just urge you to read it. It's just an FYI and an annual exercise that I go through. No recommendation needed.
All right, so no recommendation on that. I think the rule of thumb is if you're talking about something and you're both on the same board and you realize you could end up voting on it later, you need to shut that conversation down in a big hurry. So, and then going into number 8 on our TDT ordinance. Go ahead, Elliot.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Really excited about this. The county attorney, when I was appointed, I guess probably 15 years ago, really helped us redo the ordinance that was amended many times over. 15 years later, it's been amended many times over. And the ordinance that we have today, every time the TDC or the Board of County Commissioners would want to partner with a municipality or a nonprofit, it would have to be added to the ordinance. The attorney, Alex Nicodemi, as she rewrote this, we had the mindset of how could we optimize the approval process with a new ordinance. So instead of always having to add a new program to the ordinance, she created sections with different categories of eligible uses. For example, if you partner with a museum is a museum, whether it's the Florida Railroad Museum, whether it's the Bishop Museum, whether it's the Anna Maria Historic Society. If it fits in that section and there's an amount of budgeted money up to, then the ordinance does not need to be amended. A peer is a peer is a peer. So if it's in that section and there's enough of money in that section up to, then we don't have to amend the ordinance, which really helps us. If you recommend something, it goes to the Board of County Commissioners, it gets approved, then the only thing we need to do is have the chair ratify the agreement and do a budget amendment to cover the cost of that partnership. So I'm real excited about it. At the end of the day, what it does is optimize the approval process for both the TDC and the Board of County Commissioners. You'll see we left it where it was the edit lines because we wanted to see y'all to see what changes that we made instead of giving you a brand new clean one. But it's been vetted by a really sharp county attorney and Alex Nicodemi. I've also, the tax collector looked at it as well, and it all makes sense to them. So unless you have any questions, Mr. Chair, I'm asking for a motion.
Mayor Bryant.
Just because nothing has arisen in that area, but one of the things I'm just curious about on A3, Section 7, because it refers to arts, historical, educational, and cultural activities. If at some point there was a means to participate in some of the historical properties at the fair, would that be inclusive of perhaps the Manatee County Fair?
It would. What we do is, and thank you, Mayor, it's a great question. Even though there may be language in these sections, we will still, on basically request by request, ask the county attorney to vet that to make sure it's an eligible use. I'll give you a situation where when we bought Premier Sports Campus, the Board of County Commissioners, only a certain percentage of that 147-acre campus was eligible with TDT, okay, which surprised me. So we used a portion of TDT and the rest impact fees to be able to buy that. So even though I would have thought that 100% of that could be TDT eligible, the county attorney did some case studies, some research, and made that recommendation. So we'll look at everything. If it fits in the section, we don't need to amend it. If it's something that is outside the section, then we'll go to a public hearing and add that to a section. So it doesn't lock us into anything moving forward in the future.
Well, the reason that I asked that was because as you know, we've discussed it between us several times. But one of the points that today was covered so much about the Railroad Museum. And I think that's one of the things that we need to really expand on, that type of diversity in the events and the different offerings throughout Manatee County. So I think that does really help the islands a great deal in sharing that, because I know they're overwhelmed many times of the year, and probably that's just going to grow more and more. So anyway, I've always been very supportive of that. I've been very supportive of the Railroad Museum and having diversity in the different things that are going on throughout the county. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it. Do you, real quick before I go to you, Ms. Kennedy, do you remember, and I won't ask you to play attorney, perhaps just one on TV, do you remember what the breakdown as far as with Premier, what determined whether or not something might be eligible, or what the percentage might be?
Yeah, it was the stadium and its associated amenities were eligible for TDT. And Commissioner, if I can recollect, I think it was around $5 million of TDT that went in the Premier Sports Campus. The rest of it was impact fees. It's that, Ann would tell you that venue in itself, on an average year, will bring in about $45 million to the community a year. So, that's the kind of deals that are great for a community to continue to diversify them.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, let's try to get a good handle on that and try to get some answers for you so that you know which projects you're looking at might be at least proportionately eligible in the future.
Yeah, yes, sir. And on the sports side, I'm already going to have some chatter with the attorney because sports is growing, just so kind of we have an idea, even you and I, of what TDT can be used, or what, just to manage expectations there. So we're on the same page.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Ms. Kennedy.
Well, I'm going to play off of your comment, and I thank Mr. Childs several years ago when the Railroad Museum came up before the board. I would like to see it expanded all the way to Palmetto, and I don't know how we can get that done because I know the state's involved, but just planting another seed, that's all.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Patel.
Question on item 11 on A4, public transportation. What are included in the public transportation funds as marketing budget, and what area is included in it?
That would only be for the water ferry service. As you all recommended the acquisition or to buy 2 water ferries. yeah, that is eligible. Something like the MCAT would not be eligible, so, but that would fit into that category, Jiten.
So airlines not included in that budget?
That would be a different category. Airline initiatives would come under marketing and promotions.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Couple of questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Patel.
Just a thought, the number 12, emergency marketing fund, we have it at million for a while, and because of the inflationary reasons, I mean, things keep going up, and now having good years in business, could we make that number a higher number? Because when, what I've seen lately, and when the disaster strikes, I mean, it takes way more money to bring our business back.
Yeah, it's a good question. Larry White had that idea, way back when. I think Ed was the only one still on the board. We've used $250,000 of that million in my time as director, and I think it was Red Tide. The perception in the Northeast was we were affected by red tide, and we were not, and we wanted to mitigate that quick. Once it's up to 1 million, it locks in there. Here's the good news. I'm not quite sure that the TDC or the board would have an appetite increasing that higher because of the historic data, but if for some reason we needed to quickly get more money, we could do a quick budget amendment and just put that right into marketing and promotions. And one of the advantages is this new ordinance allows us to be more fluid quickly. But I'm with you, but in my time, $250,000, I don't want to speak for the board, but there's, in my time, at least county administrators don't like too much money sitting in a certain coffer and not moving. Hence, no more than $1 million. But it's a really good thought, Raul.
And one more comment. So we had a hotel owners legislative day in Tallahassee, and one bill that is coming from the House side is to expand uses of TDT monies. And really that's scary to us. And also other thing they want to try and do is there's a struggle for Visit Florida funding every year, and they want to divert, they want to add 0.5% on the TDT collections, and that goes towards Visit Florida, and they're equating to $100 million every year. Like, I'm thinking it's not just the hotels who should be responsible for collecting, it's a collective effort. So, from our lobbying team, we should be communicating what our needs are.
Mr. Chair, that's outside of my job description. That would be dialogue with the county administrator, and it would go on the board's legislative platform priority list to direct your lobbyists to have an appetite for that or not. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah, I can't go to a lobbyist when I don't know the pleasure of the Board of County Commissioners,
Right.
as well as the TDC. All I could tell you, it's a long road to hoe to change the tourism tax language up at the state level. You have Disney and Universal Studios and SeaWorld and Busch Gardens that have lobbyists that really keep that language locked in. And you and I have talked about that a little bit too. Doesn't mean we let our guard down, but it obviously, it's a tough pill to swallow if that happened, to feed Visit Florida that way, when really the rental car tax, in most cases, a percentage of that feed Visit Florida.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Go ahead. We've got a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance, or recommend ordinance 23-59.
So we have a motion from Mayor Bryant. We have a second from Mr. Patel. And we have any discussion on the motion? And that was Jatin Patel. All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. With that, we'll move into number 9, Anna Maria Island Historical Society. Go ahead, Mr. Falcione.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last minute, we added this on, so I wanted to check that box and get a recommendation from the TDC so we can get this to the Board of County Commissioners for their pleasure. Many of you know the Anna Maria Historic Society has been on Pine Avenue for a long time. Same setup as the Florida Railroad Museum, where they're 100% volunteer-based. And a former TDC member and City Councilman Doug Copeland came to me before the holidays and asked if the TDC, total transparency, would consider helping fund a permanent employee out there. And what we negotiated was, instead of just trying to create a grant for that, let's have a local museum consultant really study their operation, help them create a business plan that would hopefully give them a diverse set of revenues that they could actually, through that plan, generate revenues to put some full-time staff at that place. I think I'm preaching to the choir for many of you. We can't lose telling the story of the history of Anna Maria Island. The water ferry, when it stops at the city pier on Anna Maria Island, will go right down Pine Avenue, and those visitors who've been on Anna Maria Island for the first time can learn the history of that island. The board makeup is unbelievable. They work hard. They're well-versed. So we're asking for a recommendation up to $62,000, and they're going to put $10,000 in it to go ahead and have a consultant create a business plan, work with them and us, and then we can come back to you with results of that, of where we'll head with them in the near future. With that, I'm asking for a recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a recommendation that we support this great cause.
Second.
Got a motion. Have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second, but we really haven't gone into discussion. Is there any discussion on this matter?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Webster defines history as following exactly what has transpired from the time something started to where we are now and how it affects human society. I've been in the Historical Society many, many times, and every time I go there, it's amazing to me that the history of our little island, going back to Cortez Village and how Cortez Village got its name, Bean Point, how it got its name. I happened to be in Ed's office one day and happened to see a picture on the wall where we actually charged $1 somewhere down the line in the 50s and 60s to come onto the island with a little gate that goes up and down. That was fascinating to me.
Don't give Holmes Beach any ideas.
That wasn't a plug, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
But when you walk in the museum and you take the time and you study some of the pictures and the history of the great island that I happen to be fortunate enough to be on and work, to me, it strikes a tone with me that we need to do something for these folks. They have been working hours, timelessly, volunteers, putting their hearts and their souls into this little building that I believe was built in 1920. Used to be an ice house, was a turtle hatchery at one time. It was a garage. And then I think it was 1992, I think the City of Anna Maria offered to give them a lease on this building that they could start it up. And I think they've been running this whole time, basically just as volunteers. They're going to need a lot of money to get this going. And some of the wording that I would like to apply to this is that some of the studies that it's going to take based on time and how much it's going to bring on board additional people to basically run this, manage it, support it, Mr. Chair, I'd like to say that perhaps if we could consider taking this from that $75,000 figure to a $100,000 figure and just round it up. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion?
Yeah, I certainly want to speak to, how this thing started. We want to recognize Carolyn Norwood and Pat Copeland. They were the instigators of this. Now, what is that, 30 years ago? And this has been bootstrapped from the beginning. It was an initiative that came up organically from people on the island that knew the history of the island and didn't want to lose that. And that was when we were still a little secret, and before we were discovered. And when you look at all of those years and all of the works and all of the bake sales and the bread sales, and what distinguishes us from every other place? What distinguishes this area from every other place is Anna Maria is a real village. It was not a resort that was built. It was a working community. It had all kind of different facets to it. They built the city pier in 1911, and they brought all the sports down on the ferries from parts north. And the tradition of coming together generationally started there with that city pier, and then the bathhouse where Sandbar Restaurant happens to have the pleasure of sitting right now, that was built in 1912. And that was when people came together in this area to have great times on a generational basis, and they still come today. And it is a very real place. And the story that we don't want to lose, the story about Leave No Trace, the story is all told in that wonderful facility with the people that have done so much to make it happen and continue to make it happen. Because it doesn't just happen on its own. It takes the dedication of the board and so many people that do it. And so it is more than absolutely, I think, appropriate that they get some support because we're selling the history of this area and what makes us different. And they do that, and they teach that, and they educate people for that in a way that we are very, very fortunate to have. So I certainly support the motion, and I would support the extra dollars.
So the motion is for the 62 is the ask. And I mean, that's what I'm holding it to now, unless someone makes an amendment to that motion, and then we can discuss that amendment. But it seems to me if this is our first time doing it, we should give them what they ask. But I'm just the chair. I'm not the only one on the council.
Yeah,
so.
Mr. Chair, is an option, if the council wants to consider this, I could change the scope up to $100,000 to be applied to their operation that is an eligible use on a reimbursement basis. If the TDC has a pleasure to do that, then I would amend the scope.
I would move that amendment to the motion.
Just a quick question is, the use of the fund also should be defined. So, and is that a multi-year fund disbursement, or it has to be this year fund disbursement?
It's a great question. This is a one-time ask at this point.
Thank you. I second it.
Go ahead.
So would this be, let me just ask a little bit of a clarifying question. So is this to fund the study?
It is to fund hiring a consultant, and they're local, Carter Global, so they are museum consultants. Brenan Passario, the former executive director of the Bishop Museum, would be hired on this project to do that, so she knows the community as well. And I think the extra funding would limit me from coming back a second time, because once the results come in and we could apply that to their operation, they may be able to get some paid staff off other than waiting for me to come back for another ask.
Do we have an actual quote on what the consultant wants?
Yes, sir. It's 72,000.
Would the board consider doing an even 72 so that they don't, nothing out of pocket? But what would they be doing with the other 28 if this is covering what they're asking for, if that makes sense? So in other words, if we read this agenda item, it says 62 from us, 10 from the society to cover the 72,000 cost of the consultant. So, I mean, it seems reasonable to do, instead of that, ask for nothing from them. But otherwise, we do need to at least say what we want, what the plan is
Yeah.
with that other $28,000.
To answer your question of what would they use the balance
To me.
for, initially, they asked us to help fund a paid staff position, okay? But I felt like they should do a study first to say, okay, where are they at today? How could they bring, and not that it's not at a good level now, but bring this to a new level with multiple revenue sources to support a permanent staff, okay? So with the extra funding, without coming back to the board, or if the TDC, or if the board approves this, we could put language in there that balance, 25,000, would go to their operations. If it's a legal use, that could pay for permanent staff as early as this summer, because they're 100% volunteer based. So shooting from the hip, that's what I'd feel good at, and then they're on their way of having paid staff to run that historic center.
And you feel like that is, the consultant is going to end up with that being the overall recommendation?
I think there's going to be other recommendations to be able to enhance revenues at that beautiful place. They have average of 10,000 visitors that go through there a year. And I think it's going to only go up with the water ferry service and people coming right down Pine Avenue. The geographic location of that history center is perfect on Anna Maria Island, because it's where they're going to come off that ferry. Just my recommendation, my thoughts.
Well, go ahead. Yes, sir.
So just looking at the use of fund, I believe the 62,000 is a good, the right amount to give this year, and additional help if needed could be done in a next calendar year.
I'm still at a little bit of a loss on this. So you're gonna leave 28,000 there, then maybe they can use it. Maybe they needed 60,000 and we're short, 12,000, 22,000. Wasn't it simpler just to find out what they really want? They have a contract for this amount of money. And then when they find out what it's gonna cost to do business, then now we have another number that we say, okay, we'll pay this much and they pay this much. Why are we throwing money in the pot and letting them hold it? I mean,
Mr. Chair, there is a motion on the floor, I believe.
Yeah, well, we're discussing the motion, so I'll take the
Yeah,
discussion on it, and motions can be amended.
if you want to call the question, call it.
That is an option.
Yeah.
Let me be clear, I'm not trying to say that I wouldn't support doing more. I just don't, seems like a bad setup for them to be given something without the parameters of how they're supposed to use it, especially when you're talking about an employee, because that's probably not going to fund an employee, so then they're going to end up taking more in a bad spot. But anyway, we have the amendment on the floor, which is voted on first, is to amend what we've been presented here, which was a $62,000 ask with a $10,000 match from the society. All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
This is the original amendment that Shirley made.
We would vote for the amendment first, which is to do 100,000. I apologize.
It's okay.
Okay.
The amendment is to do 100,000 even from us. Is that the motion
Yeah,
or the amendment?
Under discussion.
Up to.
And to Councilman Wick's question, I think Elliot pointed it out. What they are looking for is the money for the consultant, and there was also the ask about being able to supply some funds to have their first paid position. Okay. So while it's not going to fund a whole position for somebody full-time, probably would get close to that. They're dealing with a lot of volunteers out there. They're dealing with situations where they've got high traffic time. And I think the idea that they could have a cushion to use in a way that benefits the museum and has a paid person in peak times when they're needed would be a good use of that funds, and that's why I'm making the amendment.
Okay, thank you. You're from this society?
Yeah, they were going to come
If
up
you
and
don't
say
mind,
hello
we're gonna,
afterwards.
since we're discussing still and we are not voting yet, if you don't mind, come forward. I've got a couple of questions for you.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning. Good morning. Oh, I can't see over this. I'll stand on my tiptoes. I'm Elizabeth Hager. I'm president of the board, and this is Barbara Murphy, who's the vice president of the board.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
So your question?
Thank you, Barbara. Well, I do want to kind of keep things limited because I can tell that you are a joy. So we would enjoy having you speak, but since we're this far into the vote, so let me ask you, obviously, I don't think 72 is even debatable here. We're all in favor of that. But if the amendment to do an extra 28 were to go forward, if that were to pass, does that solve your problems, or maybe that's not the right question, but is that a good setup for you, or does that too small of a seed to do anything with? Where does that put you? I mean, obviously, we all like it when people want to give us extra money, so, but it might make me feel a little better if I knew the plan, and if you don't have it yet, I understand, because it wasn't on the agenda. Go ahead.
It actually goes a long way, Mr. Chair. And I think both Elliot and Ed Childs articulated it quite well, which is we are prepared to do this work with a consultant, and we understand that we need to. We're ready to go. She's even come up and done some pro bono work with us already to get us started. But we really do believe that the end result will be a recommendation that we need part-time help. And as they articulated, Doug Copeland asked for that money in the first place, and we were pleased that they wanted us first to do more work to strengthen the whole situation. But since we think it probably will be one of the recommendations, it would be wonderful now if you voted for Mr. Child's amendment so that we can proceed apace rather than waiting again for agendas and all that kind of thing. So.
And then part-time, you do feel like would be at least a partial solution for you. We're not setting you up to need a $60,000 employee and we're only offering 30.
Right, you said it.
Part-time
You
might
got it.
very well be a good
You got
solution
it.
for you. Okay, those are the questions I had. Does anyone else have any questions?
Mr. Chair, and Eric surprised me here, so my job is to give options based on comments. But an example, and ladies, tell me if I'm wrong, they could bring in an intern. An intern is paid. I would highly recommend using the words up to $100,000. And if this TDC recommends this, then I would adjust the scope accordingly before it went to the Board of County Commissioners. If you stick with the 62,000, we'll stick with the scope and move that to the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, we keep saying up to 100,000. They got 10,000 of their money in the pot. We're offering 62 at this first thing before we all got into this conversation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that means we're short 28, that puts us at 90. So it's really, we're moving this amendment to be 90,000 from the TDC. Their 10's always still there, right? Or are we trying to get 110,000?
I asked for 100,000.
See, so now we want 110, so that now there's two different conversations
I want
going
to
on.
keep it at 100,000 across the board. These folks, they need some help, and they are going to have to hire someone. And I really don't even think the amount that we're giving you is going to be enough to even do that. I really don't, okay? You need some help down there. You've been struggling for years.
Well, and one problem is a lot of our docents are leaving. They leave us, of course, in May, and then throughout the summer. We're very shorthanded, and we definitely need the help. Those of us that remain are few, and yeah, working long hours. And so it would really be an amazing help to get the full amount.
You've been doing this for 30 years. 30 years. I mean,
We love it.
my hat's off. If I had a hat, my hat's off to you, doing this without having any permanent help there.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Cairns and Mr. Childs, too.
You know, and I think it would be appropriate for this board to expect that with this participation, with this support from the TDC funds, that someone that Barbara is close to might be willing to encourage the city of Anna Maria to help in this regard as well and to carry some of the load for this.
And they really do, Ed. I mean, they're right there helping us and everything. We just changed our charge system, which they gave us the funding for, and so many other things.
Couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, the groundskeeping and maintenance.
All right. So the amendment on the floor is to amend the dollar amount asked to 100,000. Let's take a vote on that amendment. So it's to pass it, but with the dollar amount being 100 instead of 62 from the TDC. So that is an increase of 38.
And who made the motion for that? Was that Eric?
I did.
Okay, so we have one motion on the floor, Mr. Chair, for that amendment.
Okay, we have an amendment on the floor.
Yep.
The amendment was made by Eric.
Eric Cairns.
Seconded by Ed, seconded by Jatin. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Right, it carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Congratulations.
Thank you so
We
much,
look forward to good
councilors.
news from you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Great to see you, ladies. We'll be in touch soon.
We'll be waiting.
Makes me scared of you.
All right. And then number 10, do we have any new business from the board, from the council?
I got a little new business.
Go ahead, Mr. Childs.
So we talked about Leave No Trace as we started out. We know that the recognition that we get for our environmental lands, for the Rye Preserve, for Robinson, for Duet, it's a big part of why people come. You see them out there all the time as we're going back and forth to the island. You see them in the kayaks. We want people to recognize and to participate in our environmental lands because that's the person that cares about what we care about, our culture, our history, this is not a party place, but this is a place that has an identity and really cares about its environment. We've got an opportunity now, the Environmental Lands Committee in Manatee County is looking at projects so that we preserve some land. We've got a tremendous amount of development in this county. It's fortunate to be doing extremely well in that regard. I've got a farm 26 miles east of our restaurants that is in the middle of that and one of the fastest growing zip codes in the country. And there's an opportunity that is on the Environmental Lands Acquisition Committee radar screen that I think is going to come in front of this county for purchase of 1,800 acres in Parrish. This is right across from the Florida Power and Light power plant there that has been decommissioned for oil now and is all going solar, and I think we know about that. Those stacks are actually going to come down. So there is the opportunity to take 1,800 more acres of sensitive land. This is the Wisnat farm. Blake Wisnat, we'll remember, was one of the OGs in agriculture in this area. Many of us have the earth boxes on our porches where we grow herbs and tomatoes and peppers, and that was his patent. The Trust for Public Lands now has that 1,800 acre piece under contract. And I'm hopeful that we could see that preserved because I think there is a real need to continue to preserve more land and to restore it. There's a great opportunity for wetlands restoration in there. The county would have an opportunity through that if it decides in its wisdom to be part of this purchase, to use that for the mitigation credits and that service area that they need for all the development that is being done out there. It's a opposite side of the coin for what the county has been so supportive about in the marine environment, where we are promoting biological mitigation strategies to fortify the coast. We all know about water issues. We're dealing with red tide right now. Yesterday was not a good day out there with the winds coming in for the west. And so we've got a big science project that this county has supported with a $500,000 match, where we've gotten $2.5 million from the state of Florida and $2.5 million from the federal government to study the science of using clams and seagrass for biological mitigation strategies for promoting coastal resilience. So that's all about, we planted a lot of clams. We had Scalapalooza Saturday night where we raised a lot of money to plant clams, and that's what we ought to be doing, but we need to do it with the science, because that's what's going to leverage these dollars. When we can show what happens to organic matter in the benthic environment, when we can show what happens to water quality, when we can show what happens to forage fish habitat, when we can show what happens to seagrass importation, that science is going to be critical as carbon credits come down and as more sustainability grants come down. This project would give us the opportunity to do the other side of the coins, to have the marine side and then have the upland side, where we are building soil, where we are preserving lands and taking them and making them a less intensive use. It certainly melds with the things that are happening in Parrish with the Railroad Museum and the way that Parrish is growing. It would be something that people could come in and study what goes on there. It's an opportunity for a processing facility for local beef and local pork. It's an opportunity to have a voluntary composting facility. And I think that's something that Manatee County ought to be looking very hard at. So I raised that today for all of you that are here in the audience and on the board, and that anybody is listening. If that rings as something that you think is important, preserving 1,800 acres in what would be the Parrish Preserve, please let your county commissioners know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Childs. Any other new business? Yes, sir.
Just wanted an update on like general things like how are we coming along with the new convention center, the hotel, also the ferry. But something that I also want to get like more detail is what time are we not renting out the convention center, and when does it come back for rents and stuff like that?
What was your last comment, Raul?
Like the convention center would be not available for rent because.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
For,
That was, you and I are on the same page. That was, Mr. Chair, current business I was going to just quickly bring up. The water ferries are being built by a company called Trident, not far from here. They should be ready hopefully no later than May. We'll be working with the three cities to enhance the docks to be able to handle those boats. That'll be City of Bradenton, City of Anna Maria, City of Bradenton Beach. We should be coming to the Board of County Commissioners soon for interlocal agreements for those three cities to be able to make those the stopping points. As you all know too, it'll stop down at Coquina Beach as well. So we'll let everybody know when we're getting ready to launch. We do have brand elements. We plan on wrapping those boats. Board of County Commissioners should be seeing that soon as well. We'll share that with you all so you're not surprised. The name of the boats, and I know Colby has a pretty robust marketing plan, not only in the marketplace, but in our backyard as well. So we're really, really excited about getting that going. Once again, it'll start off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 10:30 to 9:30, and then based on demand, consumer feedback. You know, this time of the year, it realistically could be running 7 days a week. We are looking at many different options in Palmetto, especially with the hotel going up. We really do need a stop over on the North Shore as well, so we'll be working with the mayor on that as well. Premier Sports Campus, they either order the permanent frame tent or it's being ordered really, really soon. That'll net out 6,500 square feet, just like you see at a PGA golf tournament, with a wooden tug and groove floor, air conditioning, French doors. That'll be really invaluable to our sports customers, as well as our team will be able to rent it out for other types of events to create a secondary revenue source. They're designing the parking lot that should get us an additional 400 parking spots at Premier Sports Campus that is desperately needed. The county is working really hard to try to meet the June deadline when we host the National Super Copa soccer tournament. Finally, the question on the convention center, as you all have driven by, the hotel is getting bigger in my window by the day. Things are going well. They've added a spa component to the Marriott Hotel. If everything stays in the timeline, it should be open for business in January. I spoke to property management of Manatee County recently. We are really close to 30% construction design for the convention center expansion, and what will come with that is a budget. We'll get that to the county administrator to work with our financial officer. And then once we're a go, I may need to call a special TDC meeting because if things align, we probably don't want to wait till the April TDC meeting to get a recommendation to get that to the Board of County Commissioners. The objective, if the pleasure of the board is to move forward, we want to mobilize and catch up to the hotel as well. So stay tuned on that. We may need a special meeting. Unless anybody has any questions for me, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? That seems to be our new business. Thank you all so much for having me. It's going to be, I'm honored to be able to be the chair this year. It's going to be exciting. Good things coming for all of us and everyone involved. And with that, have a great day. This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.